Here we have one of our national beehives. I'm going to give the bees a bit of a smoke with some smoke before I open them. The bottom, the underside of the hive is mesh, so we give them a bit of smoke and the smoke will rise up through that mesh floor, and the bees get a bit of a smell of the smoke and it just calms them down a bit before we open the hive. In the wild, honeybees nest in tree cavities. If they smell smoke, they think it's a forest fire and the house is going to burn down, so they get ready to evacuate. And what they do is they run to where the honey stores are and they start gorging themselves on honey. And while they're doing that, they're too preoccupied. They more or less leave the beekeeper alone, so it means that we can go in the hive and inspect them without too much hassle from the guard bees. I'm going to take the top boxes off the hive. These are super boxes and these are full of honey. They're very heavy. I'll take that off and sit that on the floor down there on the upside down lid. And I'm going to very carefully remove the queen excluder. And there's lots of bees in this hive. And just pop that there. And give them a little bit more smoke. It's a bit late in the day. I don't normally inspect the bees this late in the day. And they can get a little bit on edge if you open them when they're all home for the day and they're trying to settle down for the evening. So I'll take the first frame out. So this is a new frame I gave them recently. They're just drawing it out. I need my frame hangers to hang that on. I'm trying to hang that there so I don't lose the frame. And I come in and inspect the bees on a regular basis. We have to check the bees for signs of disease, make sure they have enough food, they're not starving. We want to make sure the queen is present and correct. She's laying eggs and there's lots of young bees being born. We want to check the brood to make sure that the young bees are all well formed and free of disease. We also want to check for the parasitic veromites, and if we see lots of veromites in the hive, we have to do something to reduce the mite population, whether that be a chemical treatment or a mechanical manipulation to remove the mites. And at this time of year we're also checking the bees for signs of swarming. Swarming is how the bees reproduce. They make a special vertical cell that hangs down from the frame, and they put a larva inside it, they make a new queen. And when the new queen is ready to pupate, the old queen will fly off in a swarm. And speaking of the old queen, this is our old queen here. She's a red queen. Red queen means that she was the 2008 queen. There she is. But as you can see, she's a prolific layer. She's got producing lots of brood. The frames are ram-packed with brood. So we'll keep her for a while longer yet because she's doing quite well. Queens might live for up to 5 years, but most queens live for 2 or 3 years at the most. So this queen's now 2 years old, but she's still going great guns, so for now we're happy with her, we'll keep her. Lots of eggs on that frame there. I took some frames out of this colony a few weeks ago to make a split, so some of the combs are new, got lovely clean clear wax, and some of the combs are a bit old, and at some point we will replace these other older frames. These are last year's frames and they're getting a bit old now. We like to change the frames in our hive on a yearly basis here at St Mary's. Keeps the bees nice and healthy, gives them clean wax to lay in, keeps the colonies vigorous. I'm just checking for any signs that they might be wanting to swarm. If I found signs that they did want to swarm, I'd have to trick them into thinking they're swarming by either splitting the colony or shaking them onto clean comb and removing the brood nest. I don't think these bees have any intention to swarm just yet. Lots of pollen on that frame, lots of lovely oranges and reds, brown coloured pollens coming in. There's another new frame there, but they've decided to make all wonky comb on that frame. Not what we want them to do. Sometimes the bees don't do as you would like them to do. They'll do their own thing and they'll make wavy comb in the hive. if they don't like how the frames are spaced. It's a frame of pollen and nectar, and they're still drawing out the end frame. So that's that brood box inspected. I can now push all those frames back together, replace that end frame. Give them a little bit of smoke because I want all the bees to go down between the frames. I don't want them on top of the frames when I put the other boxes back on top. I want to avoid squashing any bees. A bit of smoke, and they all run downstairs and out the way. Queen excluder can go back on. And then I can put these supers back on. And that is that hive inspected. Everything's fine, don't need to do anything to them this week. Leave them for another week, inspect them again in a week's time. This is one of our beehives. I've just took the lid off it and to have a look inside. This is a national hive. It's the commonest type of hive used in the UK. And we tend to paint our hives here in the garden different colours because they're quite close together. We have a small apiary space. Ideally they'd be a bit further apart. So to make it a bit easier for the bees to find the right box to return home to, we kind of paint them different colours. So we've got some hives that are natural wood brown, some that are painted black, some are white, some are yellow, some are blue, some are green, some are red. They're all different colours, and it makes it a bit easier for the bees to identify which hive is theirs, so they go back to the right hive. This colony here is a colony that we overwintered from last year. We've recently done a comb change on these bees, so we've shook the bees off their old combs, put new undrawn foundation and frames in the hive. And the bees have drawn them out, and what they've produced is a lovely, clean, bright yellow wax, lovely, fresh, clean wax, and I can see that it's full of eggs and full of little larvae, which is really good. And the bees are covering all the frames in this box now. They've really bounced back with vigour since we changed their comb about 2 weeks ago. Lots and lots of bees. That's a frame full of seal brood. It's absolutely chock-a-block with bees. And having gone through this hive and seen that it's full of bees, this hive is now ready to have a super on it. And the super is another box that we add on top, and that's where the bees store their honey, and we'll fill the super with delicious Hackney honey for us. So I've just been to get some spare equipment that I need for this hive. So we've got, first of all, we've got a queen excluder, and this is a grill that we put on top of the brood box. This is the brood box. This is the box where the queen lives, and she lays her eggs in here. So all the young bees are raised, and this is the sort of nursery area of the hive. And that queen excluder is going to go on there. And the queen excluder works because the workers can fit through the gaps in the grill, but the queen can't. So she can't get upstairs to lay in the super. And that means the super stays nice and clean. There's no messy baby bees up there, and that's where the bees put all the honey. I'm then going to put on top of there a super box. Now this is a slightly smaller box, shallower box than the brood box, and that sits on top like that. And in here we've got shorter frames, which are the super frames. These are the frames that the bees are going to fill up with honey for us and make delicious Hackney honey. So arrange the frames in there to make sure they're properly spaced. So, and then on top of the super we put the crown board. This is the ceiling of the colony, and that's going to sit on top of there. There's a few bees on the underside, so I'm just going to shake those off. And that's going to sit on top of there, like that. And then on top of there goes the roof. And then we'll put the strap back on. We put straps in our hives here because we're underneath some trees, and occasionally branches and things fall off the tree that might knock the hive over. So that strap just helps to secure the hive and make sure it won't fall over. Now, if you would like to buy some of our delicious Hackney honey from St Mary's Secret Garden, The garden is currently closed during the COVID-19 restrictions. However, we are doing home deliveries. So if you visit the garden's website, www.stmarysgarden.org.uk, there you can buy for delivery vegetable plants, herbs, fresh produce, including jams, honey, and things like that. And you can also buy our beeswax candles. This is one of our best honey production colonies. Always makes us lots of honey. Take that top box off. You've got some insulation underneath the roof. We'll take that off as well. Pop that there. And I need my hive tool, which I've just put there. So these bees are currently on 2 supers, and they're pretty full, the supers as well. They've got a lot of honey in these boxes. I'm going to struggle to lift 2 boxes at once, so I'm going to have to take them off one at a time to lift them, because they're very, very heavy. And they've been a bit naughty and stuck the frames together to the box below, so they're difficult to get off. Lift that off. This is very heavy, it's full of honey. We'll put that there. Gives them a bit more smoke. They've made lots of comb in between the frames here. Just give them a bit of smoke. Take the next super off. I might have to give this another super, because this super is full of honey as well. It's also very heavy. Put that there. And then we'll take the queen excluder off. And just check the queen is underneath the queen excluder before I take that off and put it down. You don't want to lose the queen. Alright, and we'll have a look. We'll start at this end. We'll take the dummy board out. This is a dummy board. It's just a thin board, and basically fills some space. Fills a gap in the hive, creates a bit, fills the space, so that there's no cavity there. If you leave a cavity, if you get any kind of gap in a beehive, the bees will immediately fill it with wild comb and make a real mess of the hive. So we just put the dummy board in. So give them some new frames about a week ago, and they haven't touched these yet. They haven't drawn them out yet. So I'm just going to shuffle these along. And it looks like they're starting to work this next frame. So yeah, this was a new frame I put in a week ago, and they're starting to draw a nice comb on there. So lots of bees, and they're drawing the comb. This was a colony that I split. I took half the frames out to make a split, to make a new colony. And because they were getting very big, and I had some people that wanted to buy some more bees, some bees from St Mary's, so we split them to raise a new colony to sell. But the queen is in here somewhere. This is the full of out and stung. Full of bees. It's been stung there to scrape the sting out. A little bit of smoke on it. When the bees sting you, they leave a pheromone marker on you, which tells you the bees to attack you. So you scrape the sting out, and then you put a bit of smoke on your hand. It hides the smell of the sting, so the other bees don't try and sting you. The first time I've been stung for quite a long time. I don't often get stung by our bees. We've got quite nice bees. They're usually quite nice to work with, and we don't typically get stung by them. So lots of male bees in this colony, so I'll just bring you this frame over and show you this frame. There's lots of male bees here. The male bees are the big, burly bees with really big, boggly eyes. There's one there. He's a male bee. Huge, big, strapping fellas. They don't have a sting. They can't sting you. They're totally defenseless. And their sole purpose in life is to mate with queens from unrelated colonies. Once they've mated, they die. They actually die during the process of copulation. The force of their ejaculation causes their penis to explode and snap off, and then they fall to the ground and they die. So they literally go out with a bang. Lots of seal brood there. I'm checking for queen cells. No queen cells, which is good. I don't want a big colony like this to swarm. Another frame of seal brood. Just having a quick check for queen cells. No queen cells. Another frame of seal brood. Lots of seal brood in this hive. We did a partial comb change on this hive just before that wet weather about a week ago, and so because it's been quite wet, the bees haven't been able to go out and bring fresh nectar in, so they haven't drawn much of the new combs that we give them, so there's very little space for the queen to lay. But now the weather's getting warm again, we'll be able to go out and forage and bring some nectar in and start drawing out those combs, and then hopefully the queen will have more space to lay. So I found the queen. She's on this frame here. This frame's full of eggs and open larvae, and she's a green queen, which tells me she's last year's queen, and she's busy there frantically laying away. And they're just starting to draw out those new frames there. So I'll take the frame rests out. I'm going to put the dummy board back in. I'll put it back in at this end. And I'm going to give them a bit of smoke and then put the queen excluder back on. So just give them a bit of smoke, get them to go down from the tops of the frame so they don't get squashed when we put the queen excluder back on and the box is back on top. And the queen excluder goes back on there, as it was. And then the supers go back on as they were. And that's our beehive inspection of that hive completed. Put that top box back on, put the insulation back in the roof, helps to keep the hive warm in winter, keeps them cool in summer. And then finally we put the lid back on. So I'm now going to check on what we call a nucleus colony. This is a small colony. This is a split from one of our big colonies that we made a couple of weeks ago. And I'm going to have a look in here to see how well these bees have progressed. Have they progressed to the stage where they're ready to sell or move on into a full-size hive? So I'll take the feeder and the lid off. Just pop that down there. And I can see straight away that they've drawn all the combs out in this box, and it's starting to get quite full of bees, and hopefully we've got a queen in here and she's ready to either move into a full-size hive or got some honey there. And we've got some brood there at all stages, which is lovely. Lots of open larvae, lots of capped larvae with bees transforming inside, and they will shortly emerge. When all this capped brood emerges, there's going to be a lot more bees in this colony, so this is really ready to move on. And then we have a queen there. So this colony is, I think, ready to go. So full of bees, full of eggs and larvae at all stages. Lots of pollen and nectar on there. another frame of pollen and nectar. So we've got about three frames of brood there, and sort of about 2.5 frames of stores, which is not bad. Put that in there. So these bees are almost ready to sell. Sell on or move into a bigger full-size hive. Put the lid back on there, and I'm just going to give them a quick feed because it's been very wet lately and the bees haven't been able to forage too much because of the wet weather. So I'm going to give them a bit of sugar syrup just to keep them going until the sun comes out and they can get out and forage it for themselves again. Just need to make sure that the feed is on. This is just some sugar syrup. We only feed our bees at St Mary's if absolutely necessary. We don't want to feed them sugar really, because sugar can get into the honey and spoil the honey stores. But we're just giving these bees a little bit just to tide them over during this period of unsettled weather, because it's been quite wet this last week. We've had lots of heavy rain and the bees haven't been able to forage. So this will just keep them going until we get some good weather, and then they can go out and forage and start bringing some real nectar and make some real honey.